What's up, Crowdfunding Nation? This is Salvador Briggman, the host of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I love to tell stories and really get to the root of what's working well when it comes to crowdfunding. And today's episode is no exception to that because we actually brought on a founder who's been able to raise over $891,000 on WeFunder for a really cool fintech startup with the aim or the goal of fixing consumer credit with AI. I think that so many people who are listening to this show that are in the audience and also entrepreneurs out there are working to really impact the world for the positive. And I love hearing about stories just like this. This individual, this CEO actually came on the show and shared what it's like in the trenches raising money from the crowd. This is kind of like a crash course in equity crowdfunding, and he was able to unpack, number one, why he chose crowdfunding over going after VCs as another founding route. Number two, what do people need to know before actually going out there with an equity crowdfunding campaign and raising money on sites like WeFunder.com, and how community investment can really drive capital, but also more importantly, impact. And coalescing that crowd can be really gosh darn powerful when it comes to your startup. So you're going to hear about that and more, as well as the tactics, the advice, and the strategy behind growing a company from nothing, from scratch, to then being able to raise over $891,000 on WeFunder. So I am excited for you to listen to this. But in addition, if you want to have just a little bit more hand-holding and guidance going into your campaign, I have tons of episodes out there with this podcast, which I've been doing since 2015. Every single week, I've been interviewing real-world entrepreneurs, getting to the crux of their crowdfunding success, and more importantly, just sharing with you some of the tools and tactics and the strategies that you can employ going into your launch, whether you're doing equity crowdfunding or not. I think it's really important to be open-minded. You got to be religious almost and tenacious in your intensity when it comes to pursuing a goal. But the path to get to that outcome should always be flexible and fluid. So that's why I think that listening to today's episode about equity crowdfunding is really just open your eyes to a new method of raising funding from the crowd. But I also got tons of episodes out there on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other ways of raising capital. Last thing I will mention, so I don't blabber on here when it comes to our intro, is that if you want to learn more about equity crowdfunding specifically, I do have a book out there called Equity Crowdfunding Explained. And we've actually been seeing like a huge resurgence when it comes to this book. More and more people that have been discovering it, that have been writing in. Really exciting to see that. So if you want to learn more about Equity Crowdfunding Explained, which goes into the nuts and bolts of how to do one of these equity crowdfunding raises, go and check out this link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link will actually take you to a place where you can listen to the audiobook for free, no expenses. All you got to do is sign up for a free trial of Audible. You can get a free copy of Equity Crowdfunding Explained. That link is crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link is in the description as well, crowdcrux.com/equity audio. And if you're more of a watcher like I am when it comes to videos, that's one of the reasons why I love YouTube and put out YouTube videos. If you want to have some video training to go along with that book, go and check out my free course at crowdcrux.com/equity course. The link is crowdcrux.com/equity course. All right, man, let's get into today's episode and discover and really pull back the curtain as to how this founder was able to raise over $891,000 on WeFunder. It's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with a CEO and creator who's been able to launch a campaign that's attracted over $800,000 on WeFunder for a really exciting product and also a very interesting problem. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate being here.
So maybe we can get started. You can just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners and also share a bit about your company here.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Ryan Duitch, and I am the CEO and founder of Arro. We have created a new kind of platform where we can take underserved, thin file, and new to credit customers and help them get access to their first credit card or to a credit card that helps them build credit. What we do is very different, however. After a lot of research in the space, we found there's so many good people out there that have no idea how to manage money. Lenders have always evaluated people based on a moment in time. But what about the potential people have to improve behaviors, to make decisions, to plan ahead? And so what we've created is a platform that says, we're going to get you a credit card that starts low and grows as you go through an educational program that we've developed, as you take actions and set goals and establish behaviors that are all driven by an integrated gamified experience that we have built that leverages data, AI, and a handful of stuff. The idea is can we actually help unlock people's potential by giving you the tools to be successful and gamifying it with credit line increases. So take a lesson, increase your credit line, set a goal, increase your credit line, make a payment. You can keep growing, and all that is designated by live risk scoring.
Very cool. Very cool. Would you consider yourself to be a founder, an entrepreneur, a business builder? What do you really, how would you label yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'd for sure, label myself as a founder. I started the company through a midst of research and discovery. But all of us founders are business builders. It takes a lot, and it's quite a hard journey to even get live. They say 0 to 1 is almost impossible. 1 to 10 is the next stage. And I'm very excited and fortunate to, be entering the 1 stage right now. But it is really hard, and it takes a lot of resilience to keep things going.
Have you always been a founder, or have you done companies before?
Yeah, so I had one startup before this that I'd co-founded out of business school, started my career in finance, working a little more corporate. My last company, we had found product market fit. We were growing. We were doing exciting things. Unfortunately, COVID sent us into quite a spiral. As you learn as an entrepreneur, sometimes you can't expect the unexpected. Sometimes you're able to pivot. Sometimes you're able to kind of power through. And sometimes global phenomena change the future of a business model.
Out of curiosity, I mean, leaving a cushy finance corporate job to do something on your own, a lot of people would say you're crazy, right, for going out there. What kind of motivates that decision there?
Yeah, I will say my dad was not the biggest proponent of that decision, but in the end, you have to have conviction in what you believe is right for yourself and what you want to do. And I had come to a moment where I recognized that that just isn't what I wanted to do for, the rest of my career. I wanted to build, I wanted to see a vision through, I wanted to have a much larger impact on people out there. And so for me, I then used business school as my transition. And from there, didn't actually think I was going to start a company right away, but life and the journey takes you where it takes you. Met a serial entrepreneur, ended up co-founding with him, and everything just kind of trickles along the rest of it.
So when it comes to solving a big problem, like you said, having a big vision, what really led to you to focus on consumer credit and AI technology? Why did that capture your eye?
Yeah. So I would say, I was looking at a lot of spaces, but coming out of my last company, as we were trying to figure out, what COVID would change and how to transform, I was really interested in consumer credit accessibility. During COVID, you see the wealth gap just widening that much further. You see buy now, pay later, and all of these models starting to grow and attract attention. But when you really look at the consumer is as strained as ever. And the truth is, Arro was born through consumer research. I was toying with a handful of concepts. I was interested in alternative credit, and I interviewed hundreds of people all over the country, college students, paycheck to paycheck folks, immigrants. The deeper I went, the more I learned about how broken our system is. And I remember a buddy once asked, why this? And I said, I know too much right now that it's so hard to turn back. People are afraid of just the basic concepts around money management. A lot of the times, many people are planning weeks ahead, trying to survive, not thinking about 6 months or 12 months or whatnot. And the ecosystem most of the times isn't catering to people who need it the most. It's catering to who you can make the most money off of. And so as you can probably tell, I'm a very passionate person. And the more I learned, the deeper I went, the more fascinated I became with this problem. And the more invested I became in a solution that I believe can potentially upend the idea of credit.
I would add on to that so many people are just not taught financial education or budgeting or credit in schools. And it's almost like a gap there when it comes to knowledge, but also just the way we prepare people, right, these days when it comes to that.
100%. And that's what I always say. This isn't taught. It's not the most intuitive. Even educated, savvy, et cetera, still struggle with how to make certain decisions because a lot of the times life is life and we're living it. And it's hard to plan and map and et cetera. And so you take the fact that, especially for a lot of people who don't have excessive income, excessive savings, et cetera, Now you're not taught it. Now you don't know. And once again, survival is really the number one human instinct. How do you get ahead, and how do you kind of plan for what's in the future? The thesis here was, let's rethink and flip this model upside down. Let's align it with behavior. Let's educate. Let's do all the things that a lot of companies don't want to do, because I might make less profit from the start, but let's build a really great platform that's engaging. And then our long-term goal is we'll white label and embed this to banks, credit unions, fintechs all over. So can we show that behavioral attributes could be underwritten against, and that people are more than their credit score?
I love it. And, I've seen the rise of different companies in the crowdfunding space, like Upstart, right, and Lending Club and Prosper. And you've seen how they've grown into like ginormous companies, right, in a very short span of time. What kind of growth have you guys seen so far when it comes to like your user base, or any thoughts on your growth so far?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about a business like ours is growth is not the problem. It is growing responsibly and growing profitably. That is what a lot of people are focused on. Many years ago, growth at all costs was the mantra in startups and VC. And a lot of great companies ended up struggling, kind of taking it to the next stage, because the unit economics weren't there, because of a handful of things that touch losses and other parts of the business. We have just around 15,000 customers, but all of that is intentional. We've had hundreds of thousands, download our app, get put on the wait list, look for what's next. We are closing around, right now alongside, WeFunder, and we are establishing some more debt capabilities as well, so that we can keep growing. And my whole thesis is, you just need to grow at a level you're ready to grow. So for us, where it's not just a cookie cutter product, it's about data and the models and innovating on the platform. That takes time to test, experiment, assess, see through, so that we can eventually support and empower millions. And so I've had a lot of people push back and say, well, you could have grown a lot more. And I say, methodical growth is the key to a long-term sustainable business. And that's how we've approached it. By the way, very different than a lot of other startups out there.
For being a finance guy, I will say that you're kind of on the edge of the map, where you're kind of on the edge here when it comes to entering the Wild West, because you've explored crowdfunding, right, as a way to raise capital, as a way to access the capital markets. What kind of led to that decision in terms of launching the WeFunder campaign? What led to using crowdfunding, giving access to the crowd for people to be able to invest in this?
Yeah, so I actually found it through someone in my network who connected me with a publisher that actually supports crowdfunding initiatives. And so someone reached out to me saying, we think you should check this out. I'm always learning about new models. I didn't know really anything about crowdfunding until really a little over a year ago. And I met someone in the space who has an audience of investors, and I got to know him and really started learning about just the consumer that likes to invest in this, how the industry operates. And as a company that's trying to reshape the community around credit, trying to empower the individual, I actually thought it could be pretty amazing to get the community to empower us as well. But I will say it took a moment. And by the way, a lot of venture capital investors—
skepticism, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of venture capital investors are very hesitant about this. I was at first too. And the more I learned, the more I realized it's good people looking to invest alongside opportunities. For those of us that have been able and fortunate enough to attract venture capital dollars, a lot of us shy away from this, but why not have a power of the community to be a part of a business that is all about the community? And that's what really resonated with me about the idea of it. Then the implementation of it, I was fortunate to have some help. We kept our page private. We didn't promote it. It was in stealth for a minute. I had a partner that once again had an audience of people that he wanted to help kind of partner with me and engage around. And overall, it was a pretty great experience.
And looking at some of the people who have invested so far, you have people like Charles, who says, I believe this company is an excellent opportunity to invest for the future. You have other people, that's a retired counselor, who says, I invested because it was recommended, right, by one of my friends. You have other people saying, I look forward to the success of the company, for grandkids' education. it seems like there's a whole list of reasons. Someone listened to the CEO, was inspired by his vision to improve the customer's plight and his novel thinking. So there's a lot of reasons, it sounds like, why people are kind of getting behind this.
Yeah. I mean, as you could probably tell, we're a very mission focused organization. So, we're all about empowering the consumer through something that is better for them. And there aren't that many financial service companies that have the consumer first. It's usually the numbers are first and the consumer is second. We're also doing this with education at the forefront. So I think that resonates with a lot of people. And, when I first did this and I saw, all the messages come in, well, I got really excited when I saw why people want to be a part of this, because it's the same reason I want people to be a part of this. I believe and have all the confidence we're going to be a big company, but that is an outcome and a result of having a really great product and doing right by people in a way that makes money. What's interesting about how we've gone about it is, a lot of big companies, big names, they lose so much money on these types of products. We have profitable customers for almost a year and a half now, and we're only 2 years into the business, and we've done it by taking a different approach and a different this. And so, someone could come in and say, I think you're going to be $1 billion company. I love your economic story, et cetera. And that isn't as exciting to me as people who say, I love what you're after and what you're trying to solve. Right. And we need this product and we need this mission. And that is what I get excited about.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Talk to me about some of the things you've learned in just going through this process. For someone who maybe is considering a raise or just wants to learn more about doing one of these WeFunder campaigns, are there any tidbits or tips that you might pass on to that person
who's considering crowdfunding?
Yeah.
I'd say, two things. One, if you're considering starting a company and being a founder, you can never let anything kind of get in your way, because there will be bumps every bit of the road. But it's your early team that makes things move forward. From a crowdfunding perspective, I'm still learning, to be honest. I think it is a really great opportunity and experience, as I mentioned, for a few reasons. But, you have to be really buttoned up. I think one thing for anyone who's looking to raise money, you can't expect just because you have an idea, it's going to get funded. You have to have a plan around what you're going to do with it. Are you live and do you have some customers and some money and some proof points? Or are you hoping you're going to get people to give you money just because you have a good idea in the world? I would say validate something before you ever get started, because you might get lucky, but it's a very different and harder journey. Show that you've done the analysis, you've done the research, it's rooted in something. Ideally, you've spoken to customers all over. Validate your thesis before you ever go asking anyone for money, because otherwise, they're taking the bet to start from scratch when you really can take steps on your own. As far as the rest of it, build a great page, all that stuff. Someone might say, I'd say build a great product, have some validation, and be really transparent and genuine about what you're trying to do. And hopefully people will believe in you.
Well said. Well said. I think that point of making sure to dot your I's and cross your T's and really show and prove that your thesis, right, or what your hypothesis is actually showing traction, whether that's with users or revenue or in any kind of meaningful way. I think that really rings true for sure.
Yeah, I'd say, for a lot, the idea of starting a company is exciting. And you see in the movies, right, you get to skip all the day-to-day things that go into it. But there's a reason that most companies don't make it. It is so hard. And again, as I said, there's a lot of bumps in the road. And so the further along you are before you ever take a dollar, is this really a business I should start? Am I actually going to find product market fit? Do I even know? Companies pivot all the time, or even if they don't pivot, they evolve. And really, in the earliest stages, you're betting on the people and how thorough, how detailed, how planned, right? And I could list, 20 things, how resilient, right, et cetera, is what makes a big difference. And so, get started with something and then go to the market and say, now I'm ready to raise money. I'm not going to just raise money because I think I have a good idea. I've seen, how, the social network operated and Facebook came to life. And I think it's going to be that, because what you don't see is what it takes to get there.
The other thing, just listening to you speak and kind of learning about your history, I'd say is that you've really done a phenomenal job with networking and making connections. It sounds like, and really kind of building those relationships right before you really need it in any kind of way. Would you also agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, building relationships is how the world goes around. Business, right? Professional, personal. People have to believe in you and what you're doing. And a lot of the times that's not just because you meet someone and they like you or they like it. It takes time for people to get to know you. By the way, the most important relationship, your customer relationship. And so I think I've always put a really important emphasis on strong relationships in general. And even just to come up with the idea, I spent 6+ months researching. I spoke to hundreds of people in banking and lending and gamification and consumer behavior, et cetera. How did I get to most of those people? Because I had built relationships with people over time who made intros, who did X, who did Y. And it takes time to foster that. So I'd say from building and discovery to fundraising to product soundboarding to name it, you want to have people around you. And people will believe in you if they actually know you and know what you're capable of.
No, I think for someone who's kind of listening to the show, seeing you've raised over 800K, you have hundreds of thousands of users, you're growing quick as a whip. You can kind of seem a little bit untouchable, but do you ever have days where, you've either questioned this path or any days where you've had to just kind of plow through obstacles? Do you have any experiences like that you've had this far?
Yeah. Yes, every day there's something. Things seem insurmountable at times. Fundraising itself can seem insurmountable at times, and we've gone through some struggles on our journey. We're fortunate; we have a great product, great team, great mission, and a lot of those things can help you overcome different obstacles. But I don't know, name it. And there have been many a days where you say, why, how did I sign up for this crazy journey? I could never have envisioned it would be this hard. And to anyone listening who is a founder or wanting to be a founder, it is this hard. Maybe right now you're an AI company that can luckily jump into the bubble and kudos, but in 2 to 3 years, that bubble will pop and it will be even harder, et cetera, et cetera. And so, it comes back to expect the unexpected, plan as much as you can, but just keep powering through, have plans B, C, D, E, all, somewhat in your head, but be prepared for plan Z that you don't even know, but is a mix of the rest of them. And so, yeah, I'd say being a founder is really, really tough, and it is not for the faint of heart, but it is very rewarding and very fulfilling to see things come kind of to full vision and to be able, especially when you're trying to disrupt a space, especially when you have a mission behind it. It's very powerful. And, it's what gets me excited to do what we do.
Giving me goosebumps, man. I mean, you're absolutely crushing it. And I'm sure your family is very proud of you now as well with your career trajectory. What would you say is in store when it comes to the future here? I mean, you're raising money, you're growing. What do you see here for the future when it comes to the company?
Yeah, I mean, my and just to add to that, like for me, family is everything. I have 2 little ones, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and there's really nothing more important to me than the family. And I make sure that mentality is shared with my team and shared in general as we think about the customer and the customer being a part of the Arro family. For us, we're just really excited to embark upon this kind of new stage. As the crowdfunding campaign ends here at the end, after we wrap up a round that we've been working on for, over 6 months now, we have a journey to embark upon. We've gotten to a pretty exciting point where we've proven profitable unit economics, scalable distribution, opportunities to rethink how underwriting can ingest and drive behavior. Some of the next next stages are taking data to a whole other level. I have a vision in showing that through an engaging educational platform, we can show that people are a lot more than some of the repayment and other things that they're evaluated on. And maybe insurance companies will use our data and look at other verticals, auto lenders, name it. My big vision is eventually I'm hoping that some of the biggest banks in the country will utilize a platform like ours to instill education and engagement, retention, loyalty by actually driving the behaviors that people make versus participate in them. And so the vision is much larger than just a consumer product. It is a rethinking of underwriting by being dynamic and focusing on consumer behavior at the forefront, and then using that as a platform. And I'm very excited for the path ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're kind of in the data gold rush right now, and especially the AI gold rush as well. And I think you're really capitalizing on both of those trends, and the fact that you can have that ginormous store of data and use it to improve the world, right?
Yep.
And to use it for good. I think that says a lot about your company's values, but I also think that's the direction that we want to move in, right? When it comes to the companies we're supporting there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've built an AI coach that's meant to kind of help guide on finances, help make decisions, help optimize for credit building. And we're just in the very early days of how a financial coach that is kind of at your fingertips can help you make better financial decisions in general. And so, yeah, I think we are for sure at the kind of forefront. Data has been a theme for a long time, but as you just said, it's how you use that data that really separates a lot of companies. And we're trying to use it for good, to expand access to groups that a lot of the times people think can't be helped, by showing if you're part of the solution, you can help address the problem. But instead, a lot of people just try to monetize the problem with parts of the solution.
Love it. Where can people go to learn more about your campaign, and where can they learn more about your company as well?
Yeah, please check out our website, arrofinance.com, ARRO, no W. You can find our campaign on WeFunder. If you Google Arro WeFunder, I'm sure it will come up. Yeah, we'd be honored for anyone who wants to be a part of Arro's journey in tackling the space here. We have been wrapping up a venture capital round and are expecting to kind of finish the equity crowdfunding likely by the end of May, and then bring that in as well.
Awesome. I'll make sure to link those up in the show notes. So I just have one or two more questions here. So my first question would be, for the founders in the audience, of the companies and the founders you've seen that have been successful, I would also lump you into that category. What do you think makes a good founder or entrepreneur, and how does that separate from one who's maybe not as successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big theme you've heard me discuss a few times on here is resilience. And I would stress that to anyone who's thinking about being a founder. A lot of the times life is hard and it's easy to give up. It's easy to change conviction. It's easy to this. So I think there's a core trait that needs to be apparent for all founders. But the other thing is there has to be some idea of how you're mapping out building your business. As I said, a lot of people think an idea is worth a lot, but the truth is an idea is worth nothing. Execution is all that matters. And so one of the things I recommend actually is there's this methodology called the lean stack, where you try to essentially validate your business thesis as quickly and cheaply as possible. Can I even find a path to product market fit without having a product in market? This is customer interviews, and you put canvases together and you basically test every hypothesis. I highly recommend that for entrepreneurs because it helps you get ahead of things that a lot of the times you'll learn the hard way. For the ones that aren't as successful, I think everyone has the potential to be successful. It doesn't mean you will. Again, it doesn't mean you've chosen the right industry or the right space. Time, they say, is the biggest killer of all things. For people who choose biotech, it could take 5 to 10 years. For people who choose an AI but you have to be able to get customers. You have to solve a problem. And there's this one line that I share with everyone that really helped me a lot. And it's love the problem, not the solution. To be a founder, You need to obsess about what problem you're really solving. There could be 100 ways to go about the product and the business sell and all of those things. But if you really understand the problem and you dive deep into it, the solution will come from that.
Well said. Well said. That's a mic drop moment. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I will link this up in the show notes when it comes to your campaign. And good luck here when it comes to your remaining days on WeFunder. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I hope you took away some nuggets of crowdfunding gold when it comes to equity crowdfunding, and more specifically, how a founder in the audience, if you're doing a new company, you're doing a new startup, can actually raise capital from the crowd using what we call equity crowdfunding. In addition, go and check out some of the other podcasts I got out there. And if this was worth your time, if you enjoyed my educational approach, putting out high quality education and making sure that this is available to you for free, definitely take a second to leave a positive rating and review on this show so that other people know this is worth their time. And if you're at that point where you're just kind of sick and tired of spinning your wheels, you want to figure out this area of your business or your life and just move on. You don't want to stay around with just raising capital from the crowd. You want to build something bigger. You want to make an impact. You want to grow something and scale something years into the future. And you're ready to finally finish this when it comes to launching your crowdfunding campaign. You might be a great candidate for what I call my individual one-on-one coaching call sessions. So these are really specifically for those of you in the audience that are serious about launching a new campaign. You want to dot your I's and cross your T's. Going into that launch, you want to build a strong foundation. And more importantly, you want to discover some of the tactics, tricks, tools, and resources that I don't talk about anywhere else publicly. And maybe even have some guidance and handholding going through that process. And that sort of focus that we need to have sometimes can be misaligned. So making sure you're going out with the right direction, the right goals, the right series of steps can make all of the difference. It's almost like, based out of Miami, Florida, and we love to play golf, obviously, in Florida. One minor adjustment to your swing can have a huge impact on the trajectory of your ball going down the course. So if that resonates with you, and maybe even you also want to explore long-term coaching options and other ways of helping you when it comes to execution, go down below and book an individual one-on-one coaching call with me at the link crowdcrux.com/coaching. After you go to that link, it's going to have a really cool video that I urge you to watch that I've taken some time to put together for you, and go and learn more about this option, the process. And when you're ready, click the book a one-on-one coaching call, fill out the form, tell me more about you, tell me more about what you're passionate about, what your goals are, where you're located. Would love to hear the story of your product or your project up until this point. And then you can book that call ASAP at that link, crowdcrux.com/coaching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, I got a great one coming up next week, so make sure you stay tuned, whether you're listening on YouTube or on the podcast. I appreciate you, man, and take this time to go out there to digest this information and to start moving forward and attacking those goals.